Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome to the stage Mr. Scotte Montemayor.
130 people die every single day because of suicide. 130 people gone today. Imagine this. Half of this audience gone tonight because of suicide. Did you know in 2019 alone, there was 1.38 million suicide attempts? That's almost the size of San Antonio. 47,511 people lost their lives in 2019 due to suicide in the United States. Suicide is a bigger problem in our world than people think. It is the 10th leading cause of death in the United States. Tonight, I want to address 6 problems surrounding suicide. The first problem is you think you're alone. I grew up hearing, real men don't cry or need counseling. Men just suck it up. Men don't need therapy, they just need whiskey. Did you know a man is 3.7 times more likely to commit suicide than a woman? Why? Because on average, a man doesn't feel like they have anyone they can fight in, and that's the problem. Men have groups and get-togethers for their fantasy football team, but when it comes to your mental health, you're alone and isolated with just your anger, your addiction, your bitterness, and your unforgiveness. There's your fantasy team, and this message is for everyone. But men in particular, you have to love yourself enough to seek help. It doesn't make you less of a man, less of a woman, less of a dad, less of a mom, less of a person. Whoever you are tonight, seeking help is the strongest thing you can do. It takes strength to know you need help. Who says you have to face life all alone? Who told you had to carry the burden on your own? Who said that you were all alone and had to do it on your own? You're not alone. The second problem is we give too much value to our negative thoughts. Let me ask you, how did we get here? How did we get to the point where taking your life was better than living that life? How low did life get where taking yourself out was the only way out? Does suicide begin with a thought, a tiny whisper in the brain? Does it begin with an idea that becomes an action? Maybe you're hearing these thoughts in your mind. Am I enough? I look stupid. I am stupid. When they find out I'm a joke, that's why they're laughing. I'll never be married. I'll never have a family. I'll never be happy. You should kill yourself. Do it now. You're better off dead. No one even wants you alive. I wish I was never born. Stop. Take a breath and remember, suicide is scary, but it cannot control your life unless you let it. Somebody in this world loves you and cares about you, whether it feels like it or not. I realized this recently for myself. You see, I've never considered suicide because I know so many people would be hurt. But I can't say I never thought about it. Maybe I'd be numb, maybe I wouldn't. Maybe it would take away all my insecurities. Maybe just for once, I could know what it was like to not overthink. Maybe the world could actually function. And I've never told any of my family or friends about it because I'm always that funny, nice, smart guy. I just don't want the label. I don't want the world to see I have problems too. That's when it hit me. We care too much what the world thinks about us. We give too much value to these negative thoughts. Let me show you tonight, it's okay to sometimes not be okay, but you need to talk to your loved ones about it. You need to talk to your friends about it. I'll take the first step and show you that mental health is a battle, but we can get through it. Every day, I battle with the idea that all of God's creations are amazing except for me. I think God gave me the worst possible hand to play cards with. I have nothing to offer the world. At some points, it feels like I screw everything up. I have a visual impairment that's going to hold me back for the rest of my life. I have no charm. I have no talent. It hit me again. We give too much value to these thoughts. We cannot allow these thoughts to control our life. One of our problems is we're too busy living in the future instead of living in the now. We need to know that we are going to leave a mark. And if you do take your life, suicide does not end the pain, just passes it to someone else. You're taking a child from a parent, a brother from a sibling, a sister from a sibling, a beautiful life out of this world. You could have cured cancer, but who's to know? The third problem, those are perspective. Maybe the problem really isn't a problem, but a possibility. A possibility for once you might find your purpose in life. And you cannot allow suicide to tell you have no purpose. You cannot allow yourself to become another victim when you were born to be a victor. Did you hear me? You cannot allow yourself to become another victim when you were born to be a victor. We all have a purpose, and you just have to find it. I'm not saying it's easy. I'm saying it's worth it. How do you find your purpose? Well, you look for it until it finds you. If I told you there was $5,000 under your seats right now, what would you do? Some of you didn't even just look. I wonder if that's because you don't think $5,000 has any value, or is it because you were certain to be the one to not have it? Isn't that faith? Faith is believing in something even though you cannot see it. If you had faith, it wouldn't work out. What kind of faith is that? If I told you there was $5,000 in this room, what would you do? You would stand up, you would go look for it, you would go search for it. The same happens with purpose. You believe you have it, you stand up, you go look for it, you go search for it. And when you search hard enough, others will join in to help you find it. Finding your purpose also starts with an idea, just as suicide does. But I'm telling you, finding your purpose is the right idea. The fourth problem is what you say about the problem. I don't think people realize it, but the game Hangman actually teaches us something. The game Hangman teaches us that saying the wrong thing to someone could end someone's life. Your words cut sharper than a knife. People don't realize it, but suicide is enabled at so many different angles and always has the same outcome. And well, we know what that is. When I say enabled at so many different angles, I mean people with suicidal thoughts can be triggered by anything. Whether that's the feeling of not being good enough, breaking up with a spouse, worried about your future in your life, or even something as simple as saying the wrong thing to someone, you have to watch how you live your own life first. Because what you say and do every day will affect someone else's life. You have to ask yourself, what kind of impact am I making in the lives of others? Before I get to the fifth problem, I have a question. When I ask this question, I'm going to need you to make some noise and get loud. How many of you wish you could be famous or have more money? Make some noise, get loud. Come on, let me hear it. Let me hear it. That's the fifth problem. You think money and fame will solve all your problems. Maybe you're saying, I had more money, I'd be happy. If I had that car, if I could be famous, man, if I could get those girls, if I could be attractive, if my life could be important and significant, my life would be better. Okay. What about a man named Elton John? An icon in music. Michael Jackson, the king of pop. Owen Wilson, an amazing actor. Johnny Cash, Eminem, the greatest rapper alive. Mike Tyson, an absolute warrior in the ring. Or what about Oprah, the first African-American woman to own her own production company? Or what about Walt Disney? My childhood wouldn't be the same without him. Imagine that, the world with no Mickey Mouse or no Minnie Mouse. And then some of you ask me, why did some of them consider suicide or attempt suicide? Well, you have to consider what they go through as celebrities, their mental battles. Plus, money, nice cars, and a nice house does not buy happiness. Money does not buy happiness. And some of these celebrities attempted suicide or considered suicide before the fame, before everything was nice. And that has to go with what I keep saying. We all have a purpose. They didn't know they'd be famous. Despite growing up in money, Steve Jobs didn't know he'd be Steve Jobs. Steve Jobs didn't know his impact would be so great that one day he would be quoted saying, "My favorite things in life don't cost any money." It's really clear that the most precious resource we all have is time. You should see me in a crown. Your silence is my favorite sound. Watch me make them bow. Yeah, that's Billie Eilish. Imagine that. The world with no Billie Eilish. Did you hear me? No Billie Eilish. And I know that the older generation has no clue who that is. My generation gets it, all right? But that's the world. No Billie Eilish. Her impact is so great, like our teenagers and kids wouldn't be the same without her. But I bet when she was considering suicide, she didn't know she'd have a 16-year-old boy on stage singing one of her songs. This is the craziest part. The world wouldn't be the same without these people. What about you? What about your story? You'll never find out how your story ends if you quit now. Now maybe you're saying, well, Scotty, I'm just an ordinary, boring person. I have no purpose. Then let me tell you a story about an ordinary, boring person who thought he had no purpose. He was just like you. He thought he had no purpose. His name was Jimmy. Jimmy sat in the back of the class because someone at home told him he wasn't smart. He doesn't try on tests because he doesn't think he'll ever make it in college. Every day, he just wants to disappear and fade away, and he was only 15 years old. His dad moved out of the house because he said no queer boy would be a son of his. His mom, she seeks attention of other men rather showing love to her only son. Jimmy lives in a house of abuse, backwards religion, and drugs. Jimmy hates life. Life is just happening to him. Jimmy begins to cut because cutting is the only way he can confirm he's actually alive. He hates feeling numb, and when he cuts, he can feel the pain, and it feels so real. Until a Tuesday in January, Jimmy cuts and slices in the shower. Blood is pouring everywhere. He believes his greatest work, alone in a watery grave. By chance, his mother leaves work early. She hears the water running, but Jimmy's supposed to be at school. She calls his name, Jimmy, Jimmy. She opens the door and she sees his body almost lifeless in the tub. She screams out, Jimmy, Jimmy. Frantic, she calls 911. They arrive with Jimmy's heart flatlining. They're momentarily able to bring him back for a moment, just long enough to get him to the ER. At the hospital, there was a nurse that saw him, and she felt convicted in her heart because she could see how life had already let him down, and he was only 15 years old. She made it her personal goal to speak life into him, let him know that he was loved, and there was a purpose in his life. Years later, Jimmy gets his life back on track and now works at the same hospital caring for others who have attempted suicide. We all have a purpose, and sometimes it's a long, dark road to get there, but I know we can all get there. Jimmy almost died because of what he did, but he's alive because of what she said. Did you hear me? He almost died because of what he did, but he's alive because of what she said. What are you saying in the lives of others? What are you saying to yourself? What are you saying to yourself? And this leads me into my sixth and final problem. You're not talking back to your problems. Your problems talk to you. Your anxiety talks to you. Your depression talks to you. Even your bills talk to you. And I have no clue what that's like because I'm a teenager, but I guess your bills talk to you. But this is what we got to do. We need to talk back to our problems. At the end of every day, I want you to look for one positive thing. Give yourself a reason to go one more day. Whether that's waking up and making your bed, brushing your teeth, making someone smile, or even a small goal you accomplished. Your life is as important as anyone else's. After you go through all this pain, you know how hard it is, but your story does not define you. Your story is how others in darkness will find you. Let me say that again. Your story does not define you. Your story is how others in darkness will find you. You know what it's like to not want to wake up in the morning. You know what the thought is like wanting to end your life. You can be the reason someone survives. You can be the reason someone lives one more day. We may never know what was inside that took them away from us. They did the best they could until they couldn't any longer. They never wanted to leave us. They just didn't know how to stay. My message to you tonight is you are not alone and you have a purpose, and we can all get through this. And for suicide, we are done allowing you to control. We are done entertaining this mass murderer. Let us have a moment of silence for everyone we lost to suicide. And now, no more being silent. Thank you.